beer, it's good for you.
Hello and welcome to the video. Here I'm sharing something a little different that targets a fast turnaround but without compromise, just like I did last year with the Party Pale Ale that was very popular. This IPA recipe is also suitable for those that do not have temperature control, but a hot fermentation area. Within this guided video I will take you through all of the information you need, including a guide to the brewing and fermentation processes. So let's get to it. Let's get started with a fast look at this recipe's vitals so that you can get a preview of what is on offer before we get to the tasting section. As you can see, the recipe offers an approximate ABV of 5.4%, making it a nice easy session beer ideal for a party. The BU-GU ratio, shown almost at the bottom, shows the relationship between bitterness and alcohol at 0.51, which helps provide that desired bitterness bite, but without it impacting easy drinkability. The recipe for this beer can be found in full within the video's description area, which is underneath the video window when viewed on a desktop computer. You will also find a link there to the full recipe on Brewfather, which can be used free of charge with some restrictions. As always, I strongly suggest that you fully convert the recipe before ordering in your ingredients so that you're actually brewing the recipe as it is intended. Please do brew this recipe as is the first time rather than tweaking it, as tweaks are already in place to bring this recipe into a very good shape. Otherwise the work I have done here is rather a waste of time. I have an easy guide to recipe conversion using Brewfather on my channel as shown on screen now. Within this video this recipe is being brewed using a Brewzilla Gen 4.1 65 litre brewing system to the volume of 8 litres or 2.11 US liquid gallons. But as part of the conversion process, this can be scaled and shaped to suit your own brewing system and volume requirements. I have just brewed 8 litres here because frankly I have plenty of the earlier versions of this beer before I hit the Golden Master version, which I am sharing with you here. Let's now look at the water, the most vital element to any beer. Shown on screen is the water profile that I recommend for using with this recipe. Naturally, using the right water profile is very important. After all, beer is mostly water and its balance is vital so that it suits the beer that you are brewing. This hoppy profile from Brewfather works incredibly well with its restrained chloride, which helps accentuate hop bitterness and dryness, which works great for this recipe. But naturally this is just one way to go here, so if you have a different profile that you really enjoy with this kind of beer style, then by all means go with that. Brewfather has extremely good documentation on how to use the software to make the necessary water changes too, which makes the whole process very easy. So on this basis I suggest that all brewers, irrespective of experience, start treating their water as soon as possible for the very best of end results. You may well be surprised how easy this actually is. Before we get into the brew, let's talk a little bit about fast brewing. The very first way that you can make any brew faster is to simply brew a batch size that is smaller. This way of doing things will have a huge impact on speed when it comes to the brew, as heating times will be greatly reduced. In this example I am brewing an 8 litre batch within a 65 litre Gen 4.1 Brewzilla. With its 3.5 kilowatt heating elements it makes such a brew really fast, and this method can be applied in less extremes too, and you will still see a much faster brew time. So for example, if you have a 35 litre system or similar, then look at the minimum batch size you can create and work from there. It's now time to get on to the brew, the first step being preparing the mash. With all of the crushed malt already added to the mash water, the next step is to stir everything together thoroughly. I'm using the Carahell malt mixer fitted to a cordless drill, as it creates a smooth, even mash very quickly with very little effort. If you don't have a malt mixer, a standard mash paddle works perfectly well too with a positive stirring motion. The most important thing here is to ensure there are no dry clumps of grain and that the mash is mixed evenly throughout. Taking the time to do this properly is well worth it. A poorly mixed mash can reduce your extraction efficiency, resulting in lower alcohol content and potentially leaving your finished beer with a harsher, more bitter character than intended. Whichever method you choose, make sure to give the mash a thorough mix before moving on to the next step. Let's now start the actual mash, and here is a look at the mash schedule used here. For this recipe I'm mashing in at 66 degrees Celsius, which is the equivalent of 151 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a great all-round mash temperature that allows the enzymes to efficiently convert the starches into fermentable sugars, producing a beer with a good balance of body. Once the mash is complete, we raise the temperature to 75 degrees Celsius, the equivalent of 167 degrees Fahrenheit, for the mash out. This helps stop further enzyme activity, makes the wort less viscous, and improves the efficiency of draining and sparging the grain bed. Let's now look at the grain's contribution to this recipe. As you can see, the majority of the grist for this recipe is Carahell malt. This provides the fermentable sugars that become alcohol during fermentation, which also contribute a light, bready and slightly biscuity malt character. Using Carahell malt instead of a very neutral base malt gives the beer a little bit more depth and complexity without competing with the hop character. This literally forms the backbone of the beer. Next we have Vienna malt. Vienna malt contributes a nice rich golden colour along with subtle honey, biscuit and light toasty notes. In an IPA such as this one, Vienna does a great job of preventing the beer from feeling thin or one-dimensional. It adds body and malt richness while still allowing the tropical hop fruit flavours to actually remain the star of the show. Then lastly we have Carahell. This is a light crystal malt that contributes a touch of sweetness like caramel, honey and biscuit flavours. Furthermore, you can expect improved head retention, additional body, as well as a golden hue to the colour of the beer. At only 5% of the grist, it won't make the beer overly sweet, but it helps create the smooth mouthfeel we want in this recipe. It also helps support hop flavour by giving the beer a slightly fuller palate. If you cannot obtain Carahell, then Carapils will also do the job, but it will not contribute in exactly the same way as Carahell in terms of additional flavour and colour, which give this recipe a nice little boost. Once the mash is complete, it's time to sparge. Sparging is often viewed as a simple rinsing step, but it's actually one of the most important stages of the brew. The purpose of sparging is to rinse the remaining sugars from the grain bed. Without an effective sparge, you're leaving fermentable sugars and flavour behind, and reducing your brewhouse efficiency, as well as the overall flavour profile of your end beer. For a small batch like this, every litre and every gravity point counts. Moving on to the boil now, and for this recipe we're using a 30-minute modern boil time. Many traditional IPA recipes call for 60-minute boils, but modern malting technology allows us to shorten this considerably. This reduces overall brew day length, saving both time and energy, while still providing enough time to sterilise the wort and drive off any unwanted volatile compounds. Because this beer gets most of its hop character from the whirlpool and dry hop additions, we also don't need a long boil to achieve bitterness. Furthermore, a shorter boil also helps preserve the lighter malt profile, which is exactly what we want in a fresh party IPA. Let's now look at the contribution from the hop choices for this recipe. Here is a visual representation of our all-star hops courtesy of Hop Control software. First up is Citra, shown here in orange. Citra is one of the most popular modern hop varieties for very good reason. It contributes intense aromas of mango, lime, grapefruit and tropical fruit. In this recipe it forms the citrus backbone of the hop profile and provides a very bright juicy fruit character. Next up is Nectaron, shown here in blue. This New Zealand hop is famous for delivering passion fruit, peach, pineapple and tropical fruit flavours. Nectaron brings a huge amount of juicy tropical character and works exceptionally well in IPA styles. It adds depth and complexity to the fruit profile. Then finally we have Brew 1, shown here in green. Brew 1 is famous for one thing above all else, and that's having lots and lots of great pineapple. It produces a vibrant fresh pineapple character unlike almost any other hop variety. When paired with Nectaron and Citra, it helps push the beer firmly into tropical fruit territory. This is certainly a fantastic combination, and together these hops create a fantastic layered tropical profile that simply cannot be found without these three. The end result will be a bright, juicy, fruity and highly aromatic beer. Before the end of the boil, I prepared my Red Reaper counterflow chiller by passing boiling hot water through it for a few minutes. This will be used for the final cooling and transfer into my fermentation vessel. After the boil time of 30 minutes, I then cooled down the brew to 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit using my JD Brewing Cellar chiller, which took less than 1 minute. I then removed the chiller and added the whirlpool hops, being sure to give them a really good stir in, and then performed a 15-minute hop stand. This is where the majority of the hop character is created, in keeping with modern IPA styles, and I personally love the end results that are created with just whirlpool and dry hops, and I'm sure I'm not the only one either. Towards the end of the hop stand time, I gave my already clean fermenter, in this case a 35 litre bucket buddy, a good sanitising using the power sprayer. This is an essential late step to avoid any issues later. It was then time to cool and transfer into my fermenter and pitch the yeast. My yeast of choice for this recipe is Solar Science Velo, which so far in my testing has revealed itself to be an even cleaner version of the keg strain you may know as Lutra. Velo has become known to be a great partner for IPA styles that accentuates hop brightness by offering an incredibly clean and neutral profile. This yeast also has a very wide range of fermentation temperature from 16 to 34 degrees Celsius or 60 to 94 degrees Fahrenheit. In my experimentation I enjoy using it at 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, as this provides a nice fast fermentation, but more importantly that desired clean and neutral profile. So this is my recommendation for this recipe. However, you could use pressure up to 1 bar for making this much higher in its range. The very next step is concerning the dry hop additions, which are now shown on screen. Add your dry hops when you are between 5 to 10 gravity points away from your predicted final gravity. I have tried all methods of dry hopping, but frankly nothing so far has had as good results, and there is no need to buy a book either. The very most important thing here is to keep things clean and sanitary, so here is a guide to doing that in a way that has never failed me so far in hundreds of brews. In this example I'm going to use a hop sock, but the procedure is similar with other container types. This starts with boiling the bag. I strongly recommend doing this no matter if the bag has been previously used and cleaned, or if it's a brand new one straight out of the packaging. I then add this bag into a clean container and add sanitizer as a further safeguard. This will be the same container that I used to load the hops into. After this point I then wash and sanitize my hands, and this is repeated if I need to touch the bag after touching anything that is not clean and sanitary. These are very important steps to avoid contamination, which is all too common when it comes to homebrewers making IPAs because of this step. I then carefully add the dry hops with the bag lining the container, being sure that nothing touches the bag except for the hops. Once you have loaded all of your hops into the bag, then be sure to tie a nice strong knot to keep all of the hops contained. This loosely fitting hop bag, so there is room to expand, can now be added into your fermenter. In terms of contact time, 3 days is usually going to be plenty, but 5 days is fine too. I would avoid times more than a week to avoid grassy off flavours though. Let's now take a look at the finished beer from this batch, starting with the pour, and I will then go through my own personal tasting notes with you. You can see that the pour is a very light golden colour, but once in the glass the end beer is more of a vibrant hazy orange. I have made absolutely no attempts to clear this one according to the style. This beer has been under 12 psi of pressure, which is 0.83 bars, and I'm also using this pressure for serving too. This example you see here is at around the 2 wid point from kegging, but this one is great to serve as soon as it's carbonated. Temperature, however, is critical. This beer is best when tasted at between 7 to 10 degrees Celsius or 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. This allows the hop character to shine and the juicy mouthfeel to feel more apparent. Here are my tasting notes, starting with aroma. Aroma, an expressive burst of ripe tropical fruit leaps from the glass, led by juicy pineapple, passion fruit with intense nectarine and sweet peach. Bright citrus notes of lime, grapefruit and orange zest are layered with hints of mango and stone fruit, complemented by subtle resinous and floral undertones. Flavour. This beer allows easy entry into an explosion of tropical fruit that swings around as you get further down the glass, providing a juicy and refreshing citrus experience, with pineapple, passion fruit, nectarine and sweet peach generally leading the charge, along with mango, apricot and melon charging forward too in the middle. The finish here is very rounded and easy. Here are some additional notes on this beer. As extreme as this beer perhaps sounds, there is actually nothing here in my experience that anyone finds either too much or too little, as the beer seems to find the sweet spot for the majority, which was one of my prime wishes for this beer. And here is my final impression. This is a very good IPA juicy fruity party beer that is not only quick and easy for a brewer to turn around within short notice, it's also one that will be appreciated by drinkers in general as a good thirst quencher that delivers really well on drinkability and mass appeal. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video guide, and please do let me know your thoughts, and of course once appropriate your own tasting notes for this beer. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!